This is another episode of the Public Therapy Podcast with your host, Chris.
All right.
All right. And today we have with us relationship coach and author, Rob McPhillips. What's up, Rob? How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on, Chris and Ray.
Oh, yeah. No problem. So, Rob, tell us a little bit about yourself. I saw that I'm sorry. I always do that.
Carry on.
No, I ask people a question and I cut them off as soon as I ask the question. So go ahead.
I think that's a man thing. I do that too.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. But go ahead. Tell your story. This is your podcast now.
Okay. So basically, I started out, I used to have a gym and then I trained as a nutritionist. I was helping people to lose weight. Nobody was sticking to their diet. Nobody was sticking to their exercise. And I was like, what's the point? So I went into this big exploration of why. And I ended up training as a therapist. And all people talked about was the reason why most people, like when they start exercise or something, they do it for 3 months, is because really it's about, most of the time, it's the problem with the relationship. And they're worried that they're going to be back in the dating market. They're worried that the partner's looking at someone else, lost attraction. And so basically through that, I then went into therapy, then went into coaching, and then the only thing people were asking about was relationships. So about 3 years ago, I decided to just give up and just focus on relationships. But I kept seeing the same problems, but everyone thought it was unique. But it was just the same common pattern. So I went to try and understand what was causing all of these problems. Mm-hmm. So I spent the last 3 years doing that and came up with a system, which is to make relationships simpler.
Okay. And I noticed that you did say you have like that simpler approach, but going back to the gym thing. So you said after 3 months, you noticed that people started having issues with the gym as far as being consistent. And and that kind of relates to relationships. So were people, I guess, kind of jealous with their partners, or they were showing signs of jealousy with their partners?
Yeah, well, what I found was when you got to the root of it, you're trying to work out what do you really want to get? And they go, I want to lose weight. Well, okay, why do you want to lose weight? Okay, and then when you get to the root of it, it's kind of like they're worried that the partner's cheating. They're worried that the relationship's going to come to an end. A relationship has come to an end, and they're worried about being back on a dating market, and so they want to get back in shape for that. And so, because going to the gym is a hassle. Nobody wants to go to the gym. Nobody wants to do that hard work. Yeah. Not at the beginning anyway. And so in the beginning, that pain, that worry about the relationship means that it's bothering them so much that they're willing to go out and put in that effort. But 3 months later, the problem's resolved itself. Either it has been a problem, it was just a problem in their mind. They've sorted things out. They've moved on. They met someone else. And so they don't have that same motivation to put themselves through the pain of the gym.
Right.
So, it was really resolving the problem that they had.
Yeah. Okay. That's interesting. I never thought about that. But yeah, we just go to the gym so we can stop breathing so heavy when walking up the stairs. Trying to get back in shape.
I know. If you don't go to the gym for a while, it's just like you feel it, and
especially with the quarantine and stuff. It's hard these days.
Yeah.
So when we kind of linked up on Facebook, we connected on Facebook, and you mentioned, when I started asking you questions, you mentioned that you have a thesis that people have a fairy tale view of happily ever after, but don't slay the dragon before they marry. Can you kind of explain what that means a little bit?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so basically, most of the time, what I noticed was people don't, like if you talk to people read lots of books on relationships and they learn lots of stuff, but they don't actually use it in their relationship, because it's, when you're in the middle of the moment, you're angry. You've got 5 things to do. You've got kids calling it. You've got a job and you're about to go out the door. You don't logically think things through. Yes. So we operate most of the time. So, when we're all calm and everything's calm and nice and we've got time to think, then we can rationally think it through. But most of the time we just operate, and we operate based on the whole set of beliefs and values, what I call the operating system. And so these are like the common habitual thought pathways that we have. And now when you look at we know from research that 70% of those are set before the age of 7.
Okay.
So most of what we do is an extension, or it's built from before the age of 7, because unless we consciously override it. So when you think about the understanding that even as we get older, nobody really teaches us about relationships. Nobody ever tells us, and what people are talking, if you look at people's dating profiles, it's, I want my Prince Charming, I'm looking for the one, I'm, like I want my happily ever after.
Mm-hmm.
And so most people, although they may consciously know relationships are actually hard working for, is that fairy tale. I'm going to meet this prince. Prince Charming's going to come in, sweep me off my feet. We're going to fall in love, and because he's the one, we're always going to be happy. And the reality is that 5 years, 10 years down the line, that feeling that you had when you met someone is going to change, and it's going to change because of the friction. It's going to change because when kids come along, when you have job problems, when your parents get older, when all these kind of life challenges, if there's so much friction, it causes the couple to sort of grow apart, and they feel like like there's a wedge growing between them, and they feel that these little bitternesses and these little disappointments, and gradually they close off from each other. And so then 10 years later, when they're not feeling that same love from each other, they go, oh, it wasn't the one for me. And they go, okay, I need to go out and find my one.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the fairy tale. And I used to bash the fairy tale, and I used to go like, it's the problem with the fairy tale. But actually, what I realized was we're missing a piece of it. Because before every prince and princess can be together, there's an ordeal. And the ordeal is they have to slay the dragon, they have to lift the Wicked Witch's curse,
Right.
and then they get the happily ever after. And what I realized is that process, and this is kind of what I do in my, for single women, is what I'm working at the moment. Single women to meet their perfect prince and live and build a relationship that lasts. And basically what they have to do is build themselves to be in a position where they can give the best to the relationship and pick the right person. And what you're doing is you're slaying the dragon.
Mm-hmm.
And what that means is you're resolving all the differences that are going to come up in the relationship later on.
Okay.
So all the friction that people have is about you're not clear on expectations, because a big one is from the fairy tale framework, people expect this Prince Charming to always be perfect for them. And then they feel disappointment when they're not, and they feel, well, particularly from women, if he loved me enough, he would do that.
Mm-hmm.
And from a men's point of view, it's more like, well, she doesn't respect me like she used to. She doesn't look at me in the way that she used to. Mm-hmm. And so resolving those differences is what I call slaying the difference, slaying the dragon.
Slaying the dragon. Okay, yeah, that was an interesting thesis that you mentioned. So, do men have that same, or have you seen? I know you kind of mentioned it, but do men have that same kind of approach to it, that fairy tale approach as well? Is it pretty similar?
No.
Did you know with really. women have, like, I guess their whole life they imagine meeting that perfect person and then getting married and then having kids and then living happily ever after. But us men, at least for me, I'm speaking for self, I wasn't ever, I mean, it just happened, I was never really planned on getting, I knew eventually maybe I would get married, but there was nothing I wouldn't circulate my life around it. I wasn't doing this so I can get married later down the road for this or anything like that. So how do men approach it?
Okay. I think from children, and you can, this is, like I've got 2 daughters, and I didn't do, I was like, you can have guns, you can have toys, you can have dolls, whatever. Mm-hmm. And yet they went to the dolls, and they went, I think there are differences. There's biological differences. There's differences between men and women, mm-hmm. and that's I mean, is it tied up in culture or whatever? But there are differences, and so women typically play for that whole fairy tale. It's like a big thing, and I think that when we look at our culture, and our culture comes from patriarchy, and there's layers and layers of culture, and we can say that we're equal now, and let's ban these words, all this political correctness, but it's still laid down. And I think this is like, the whole Black Lives Matter is like really bringing this to the forefront, because we can, in the last 20 years, we've taken out, you can't use racial words, but it's still entwined, like this whole having slave symbols means it's in the history. It's stuck in there. And so you can't just change the words and say everything's fine. Oh, okay, so all sorted out now. And the same thing, because we come from patriarchy, the way that a woman was valued, because a woman didn't go out to work, and until like the last century, a woman wasn't allowed to earn her own money before 1920. A woman didn't have a say in the household. So the way that a woman achieved value was through love. And so for women, I think there's a lot more shame in not being in a relationship. It's like, he doesn't love me, and therefore I'm not of value. Whereas for a man, it's about being the provider. For a man, it's been about having status and having success. So men typically are more driven for success than for love. And that doesn't mean that they don't want love, but for a man, the way that you get love is you get successful, you get status, and then you're attractive to women.
Okay. I guess that's true. I guess like my dad, he never said you need to make sure you get a good job so you can get a good woman. I don't know. I guess you kind of, I don't know. You don't, obviously you're not going to catch a good woman if you're just low down, dirty, nothing, right? But my dad, he always like instilled those certain qualities in you, like make sure you do this, this, and this so you're successful. It was never do this, this, and this so you can be successful and find a good woman, get married, and have kids. So yeah, that's kind of, I don't have any daughters, so I can't really speak from a woman's point of view. So I wasn't raised with them.
So for me, I felt like my parents would always say, focus on your education first. Like make sure you get your education, make sure you get out and get a good job, make sure you can provide for yourself, make sure you can take care. And although they told me that, I guess because I am a woman, I still thought in the back of my head, okay, cool, I need to be set up so that when I do meet my husband, it's not a dependent relationship. Like I'm not going to depend on you to take care of me, but in the sense that when I do meet him, I still need to have myself together so that I am prepared for him.
Right.
I think the way that you can see it is if you look at advertising, women are sold to by telling them that you need this beauty cream and your man will love you more. And a man is like, if you have this car, if you have this job, your wife's going to love you more. You're going to be the hero.
Yeah. That's interesting. Oh, us men. Cause misogynistic and stuff. So you don't necessarily have a tools and technique type of way of when you look at relationships or how to fix relationships. You have a philosophical and a systematic way of doing things, or strategic approach as you wish, or if you will. I'm stumbling all over my words and stuff. So what is your philosophy? What is your philosophical approach? Thank you, Raven.
Okay, so the
see, now you're stumbling over the
approach is to essentially, I think you make relationships simple. If you make them simple, everything's easier. So there are tools and there are things to make them simpler, but the essence is, the problem in relationships is people aren't honest. And we're not honest because we're scared to be honest. And we're scared to be honest because relationships bring up all our vulnerabilities, because you've got to say to someone, like, okay, I love you, and risk them saying, or not saying it back, and you feel a sense of rejection. You've got, and when you're in a relationship, Sue Johnson talks about there's 3 questions people are constantly asking is, will you be there for me? Am I special to you? Will you be there for you? Am I special? And something like that. But it's basically, can I trust you? Those kind of insecurities. And we don't overtly say, okay, I'm feeling insecure, can you reassure me? But we do something, and then someone may not pick up on this, and may treat it on the surface level, and then we feel, oh well, they don't love us, and so there's all these kind of things that we need to be more emotionally secure. We need to be more emotionally aware. Like typically men have, I don't know about you, Chris, but for me, it's like, I know what I think. I don't necessarily know what I feel, and knowing what I feel takes longer. And so we need to be able to be at a place where we can talk about those things. So it's about being secure emotionally, and being aware emotionally, and most of all, accepting yourself, because you can only accept love to the level that you feel that you deserve.
How do you can you unpack that? You can only accept love the way that you feel. What does that mean?
Okay, so someone may love you and they may give you all the signs of loving you,
right.
but if you don't feel worthy of that, you're going to say, oh, like, oh, they're just saying that, or they love this about me, or they like they love my looks, but they don't necessarily love the real me.
Oh, okay. That's
so
interesting.
like women who are really beautiful have a constant insecurity about, are they only with me for my looks? Do they really love me?
Yeah.
Men who are really rich is it just the money?
Yeah.
I mean, like what I'm looking at this is athletes from this. They win a race and immediately find something bad that they've done, so that they balance how they feel. So that all this kind of adulation goes over their head.
Right.
So I think people do that in the same way with love.
Okay. That was interesting. I never heard that approach like that before. So, okay. So do you think that's what causes conflict in relationships? They tend to overthink it, because you say keep it simple and sweet. So do you think it's when people make things more complicated is when they start overthinking their relationships and stuff and bringing that into their relationships?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and also we're not really clear. We're not really clear about our expectations.
Mm-hmm.
So someone's gone in with the fairy tale mindset. Often women have gone in, with a fairy tale mindset, and they're expecting it to be Prince Charming, and it's disappointing. And men, like typically there's a pattern. A lot of men leave maybe 20, 25 years in, and they'll leave like a relationship that's worked for like 25 years, and often for like a younger woman, that lasts 6 months, and then they're like, what did I do? And basically it's, women want to feel loved and nurtured, and they want to feel like they're special. Men want to feel respected and like they're special. And so nobody's going to think put you on a pedestal like in 25 years, like you're home and your dad, and you put out the trash, and nobody looks at you like you're special, and we're like, well, like I want someone to love me like that. And then so typically for men, the pattern is often by that time they're successful in the job, they go to work and people look at them and they're like, you know so much, you're so powerful, and maybe they've got like a younger woman that they're sort of who looks up to them, and they're able to show them new experiences and things, and this woman's like, oh, and looking at them and they're special, and they'll leave this like 25, 27, 23-year relationship for this woman that they've only known a few months, and it rarely works out. Okay. And women, it will be like 15, 20 years in, and like, he doesn't love me, like he doesn't treat me like he used to. And it's expectations, and it's just not being, it's number one, because there's too much friction. because
Yeah.
people haven't like cleared. Okay, what are we going to do with kids? Who deals with what, when, who does what jobs? You know, what is our relationship? What do we both want? And then it's about focusing on the other person, so that the other person, you know, that the other person wants to feel special, wants to feel loved, wants to feel respected, and making sure that they feel like that.
Okay. Do you have any questions, or you good?
No.
Oh, okay. You can tell she's the quiet one. Everybody says that every episode. She's the quiet one. Okay, so are you in a relationship yourself, or are you married or anything?
I'm divorced. I'm in a relationship. I've been with my girlfriend. I don't live with my girlfriend, but I've been with her for coming up to 3 years.
3 years. Okay. And this is kind of a personal question, but is some of the advice that you give people advice that you've learned in your previous marriage?
Um,
And you don't have to answer that if you don't want to.
Yeah, no, it's fine. It's just I've never really thought about that. Most of what I've done has been in reaction, solving people's problems.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I started off as a happiness coach, and what makes you happy, and everyone was talking about relationships, and so I saw the same patterns. And so, no, it wasn't so much like, I know a lot of people are relationship coaches. They've had a bad relationship and then they've figured out what worked for them.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think that is. I think that is individual. That's too individual. Whereas I come from, I've got a background in psychology, so I look at, okay, what's this? You know, I mean, there's a great body of work from the Gottmans, from Sue Johnson, from Dan Weil, people like that.
Okay.
So no, it's more common patterns that I've seen. Everyone's situation is individual, but the dynamics that power that situation there's only a few common dynamics.
Okay.
Stumbling over my words again.
Okay. So your book. So I saw somewhere that you written a book called First Face North. So then you are the author of that book, right?
Yes.
So what led you to write that book, and what is that book about?
Okay, so that book was when I was so after the gym, I decided to go deeper into this and did a psychology degree. And while I was there, I specialised in happiness, because everyone was looking at mental health or criminology or alcoholism or something, and I looked at, how can you show people where to go unless you know what a better life is? Mm-hmm. Rather than, like, if you're fixing problems all the time, what for? I think there's a quote, Martin Seligman, it's like all you're getting people to is mediocre, like less unhappy.
Yeah.
So I want to look at what do really happy people do. And so when I came out after my degree, I built a website and did some coaching and started writing about happiness. And that book it was an ebook first, which was the 32 building blocks of happiness. Yeah. And so then it was made into a physical book, and it's basically 34 principles, which I think are the building blocks of happiness.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Cool. I might have to check that book out. First Face Forward. First Face North. That's pretty cool. Random question. This just came. You said something that kind of brought me back to this question. So I see a lot of people that are young, that are like in their early 20s and stuff, that are putting titles on their names as life coaches. And you said something that kind of related to it. How can you be a life coach if you've never really experienced life yourself at such a young age? Obviously, some people have different stories and stuff. Maybe they went through a traumatic event or something like that, and they become life coaches. But some people that I may have grown up with that became life coaches. So how can you help someone? What do you think drives people to become life coaches?
I think it's something that's appealing to everyone. Everyone wants to help. Mm-hmm. Everyone wants to help someone. Everyone wants to feel, it's not much different from years ago. People used to go to the pub and people would give them their advice. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I suppose it depends. I mean, there are 21-year-olds that have great wisdom. And, Napoleon, he said he never really learned anything from war. He'd learned it all. He'd studied for years. in his college, and he'd studied strategy and war strategy. He said he never really learned anything from war. So I think the nature of the internet is, you're always seeing these international expert, relationship expert. Well, what when you look at what defines them as being as a relationship expert, it's what TV show they've been on. And it's kind of, like you get booked on a TV show because you pitch them, or because you've got an agent.
Yeah.
So what I would say, my issue is, if someone's got a point that works, and a point that, like you take it, I think truth is important. And when this is like my whole thing of, you make a relationship simple by you build it on truth.
Right.
Because and by truth, I don't mean my truth, your truth. What I mean is it proven it works or it doesn't work. Mm-hmm. Now I think what happens with a lot of life coaches, relationship coaches, anything like that, is someone has an experience, like you talked about. Someone has an experience and something works for them, and they say, well, must work for everyone. Mm-hmm. It depends on what the thing is, because some things will only work for certain people in certain situations, and other things are universal. So I think it really depends. I mean, I think there are 21-year-olds who do have wisdom and mm-hmm. do have something to share, but then I think there's a lot that want to pretend that they have something to share. It's just the nature of the internet. It's noise.
You see a lot of them have good ideas and definitely good intentions, but I think it's kind of hard to try to coach someone through an issue that they're not too familiar with, because everyone, like you said, everything is kind of tailor-made to each different individual. So I used to look at it a very ignorant way, even with relationship coaches who've had failed marriages and stuff. And I'd be like, well, how can I trust you to help my marriage if you couldn't even help your own marriage? But obviously over time, people learn certain techniques, or they get some type of experience with themselves that can help them, or to where they're able to help others avoid certain situations that they've gone across themselves. So obviously you grow up a little bit older, you gain some type of wisdom. And I don't think that way now, but I used to have that kind of mentality.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that. I see the point. I think, first of all, my view on relationship is that I don't think you can say that you're a relationship expert, because if you say that you're a relationship expert, how can you be in a relationship? And it means that every time you have a row, you're always right because you're the relationship expert.
Yeah, that's true.
When you look at, okay, who probably has the best body of knowledge on relationships? John and Julia Gottman. And they don't talk about, being relationship experts. They say they can, they've learned how to sort of make it work so you can sit and have a pastry together. Mm-hmm. But they're not, saying that they've solved every relationship problem. They just learned some things along the way. Right. But I think the problem is we have a medieval mentality, a medieval level of relationship knowledge that we're trying to deal with in a high-tech world. So when you look at the coronavirus, which has just happened, in the 1300s we had the plague, and in the 1300s the way that it was resolved was flagellation, saying prayers. Nobody really had a clue. It lasted for 4 years. Mm-hmm. The government had no real response to it, so that people looked to the religion, and religion said, "Oh, it's a curse from God." It was blame the Jews, or it was flagellation. And now, when we look at coronavirus, and even though perhaps we didn't deal with it as well, within weeks, scientists knew what was the cause, how it was transmitted, and teams had started working on a vaccine. Now, when you look at relationships, Chaucer was talking about relationships in the 14th century. Shakespeare was talking in the 17th century, we still have those problems. We still have those dilemmas. We have medical knowledge has developed so that we call resources for a high-tech world. The relationship knowledge we have isn't equipping the world for the relationships that we have.
Okay. A medieval way of looking at things in a highly technological world. I'm stumbling over all my words. It must be the coffee. I had a tall glass of espresso. Now I'm like, my brain is my mouth's moving slower than my brain or something right now. But yeah, I like the way you put that. That was pretty interesting. So okay, so you told us about your book. So how can people get in contact with you for your service?
I'm on makerelationshipssimple.com.
Oh, that's you keep everything simple. You're interested. That's pretty cool. Everything is real simple. Simple Rob. So our podcast, it's called the Public Therapy Podcast, and I always ask our host, or not our host, our guest, what is one thing that you do that's therapeutic? What is the daily activity, daily therapeutic activity that you do? Whoo. Man, I gotta lay off the cocaine, man.
Okay, daily.
For me, it's cocaine, apparently.
I would say it's my morning yoga. I used to go to the gym, but at the moment with lockdown, but I find getting in a routine of workout changes, starts the day much better.
Yeah. I never tried yoga, and I feel like now that I'm getting older, I need to start doing yoga because I definitely can't move in certain positions anymore. Like I heard.
You go to the gym?
I do.
Like weights?
Yeah. I'm a competitive bodybuilder, if you will. It's kind of weird right now because we don't really have gyms to go to. But I do lift weights. But I have last weekend we were at a friend's house and my hamstrings locked up because I don't stretch. I have a bad habit of not stretching. So yesterday I made it a habit to stretch because I didn't want that to happen again. And it actually locked up last night in the bed, but I didn't want to wake you up, so I kind of bit my lip. I bit my lip, but my hamstrings get really tight after a leg day or something. I feel like yoga would help me be a little bit more limber.
Oh yeah, I never did yoga until fairly recently, and I always used to do weights because it's kind of manly, isn't it, to do weights?
Yeah.
And then I saw this strength yoga and like seeing the positions that they do, and I'm like, that's a challenge. I'm going to try that. And nothing made me feel better than yoga because it does a different type of strength. It does the kind of muscles that you wouldn't do with weights. Mm-hmm. And strength comes from the flexibility as well, because, when your hamstrings are locked up, then your quads can only do so much.
Right.
But yeah, I got into it just as getting older.
Okay.
You start to get back.
With your yoga, do you have like music playing in the background while you do it, or is it like pretty calm and silent?
Yeah, no, I just have my earphones in, or I've got it on an app, and do the exercises as just swearing away as I do.
Yeah. Yeah. Somebody need to do some yoga. I got to work out after this, but yoga is one of those things that I definitely need to implement here sooner or later.
Man, I've tried it.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Oh.
It is very hard. And the yoga teacher that comes once a week, he keeps it kind of simple for us because.
Oh, you talking about?
Yes. Okay. And I think after the first session, I was sore everywhere. For days because I was like, okay, we're using muscles that I don't use, that I don't think that I use at all.
Yeah. After
seeing that, and I was just like, oh, okay, if I do that more, I can definitely see how you can be very flexible. After doing yoga.
Yeah. Well, it must be hot where you're at, huh?
It is.
Yeah.
I'm not used to the heat. I'm English.
Yeah.
We're used to rain.
I never understood that about the UK. When we moved out here, I noticed that we didn't have AC in the houses, and I don't know why doesn't the UK have houses or not houses, air conditioning?
Because we don't have the weather. I mean, I think the last couple of years
it started happening in the last couple of years.
Oh,
like the heat.
Yeah. So global warming is real.
Yeah, I think so. Definitely. We used to have like, well, it wasn't snow every winter, but there was, like really cold winters. And summer was, often you get June, July, and you like rain. So it's definitely warming up.
Okay. Well, that's really all we have. The name of your website is what is it again?
Make relationships simple.
All right. So our listeners on the Public Therapy Podcast, go to visit Rob McPhillips at Make Things. You said
makerelationshipsimple.com.
Raven is the worst. She's no support whatsoever. She just don't even help me out. Just watch
makerelationshipsimple.com.
Thank you. I apologize for butchering that.
That's fine.
All right. Anything else you want to add to our listeners before we let you go?
No, just I just want to thank you for having me on. It's great to have a discussion. It was fun talking to you.
Oh yeah, thanks for reaching out too. By the way, I appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem.
Your added value to the Public Therapy Podcast.
Thank you.
All right.
Well, thank you for having me on. It's great.
For sure. All right, this has been another episode of the Public Therapy Podcast with your host Chris
And Ray.
All right, y'all. Peace.